here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hi, welcome back. This is FPL Wingman. My name is Tom. Thanks for joining me. Oh, I do like to be in the Champions League. Yeah, I'm very glad it's back. Big action, big stage, and big disappointments for UCL Fantasy. I'm not being too dramatic or anything, it's just 1 week, but it didn't exactly go well, and I'm not the only one. Some massive content creators have also fallen short, lots of injuries, and lineup surprises at that. The plan going ahead is still to Limitless in matchday 2 and then wildcard in 5, since we are already set up for the 3rd and 4th set of games. We should probably cover the game, shouldn't we? It's kind of important for the competition and for fantasy. So starting off, I guess we should go straight in on Milan and Newcastle. The group of death, as I'm sure we're all referring it as. Milan absolutely deserved to win, didn't they? I was not expecting a draw, and especially a clean sheet for both sides. Trippier, Theo Hernandez, these big players that were avoided by people such as myself for obvious reasons. Well, casuals definitely benefited here, didn't they? Fair play. Well done. Young boys managed to ruin a clean sheet, and I think many of us with Leipzig assets, the German side, deserved to win. And even though they had the most clear penalty I've seen in a long time go against them, it didn't hold them back. Henriks and Rom showed their value and interest. It was a coin flip, I think, for many, but I think we can be glad either way. Man of the match for Xavi Simons makes me feel pretty confident for the next 2 games that I will own him for. PSG beat Dortmund. Mbappe, Hakimi showed why they're good assets in a 2-0 win. Still plenty to play for, but Dortmund do seem the weakest right now of that group so far. Porto kept out Shakhtar on the road, and Galeno absolutely ran riot. 2 goals and an assist, I think it was. They play Barcelona the next game, and that really is the toughest they'll have in the group stage, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It might be nice to see the group be undecided for a bit longer, so there's more to play for by match day 5, maybe even 6. I wouldn't mind a win for Porto to force the Catalans a bit further in without rotation, that is. Man City with a slow start. They lost a clean sheet, but I don't care because I had a Kanji who didn't start. 2 goals from Alvarez, 1 from Rodri to get himself man of the match, and an assist from Haaland, a result that caused many to move on that captaincy. Hopefully it worked out for some of you. Atletico Madrid were given a bit of a shock when Lazio keeper Provedel managed to get a late equaliser. Brilliant, you can't make that up. Imagine predicting that. I don't even want to know what the odds are. Sorry to tell you kids, claim you were there. Barcelona ran riot as we kind of expected. The clean sheet came in, João Felix got himself a haul, Lewandowski did okay, but it wasn't the hat-trick from last year that I was hopeful of. So a nice game for Fenroyd, who cruised to a 2-0 in the end against Celtic after 2 red cards for, was it Holm and Lagerbilk? I hope I pronounced that right. A lovely score from Stones, who luckily had a deflected free kick going in his favour. I guess that's the only way to sum it up. Outside the box, clean sheet and man of the match. Bellingham, once again, did Bellingham things and extended his start at the Bernabeu. Last minute winner, how many of those who captained him will have found clarity in that? They didn't start with Fran Garcia, and I'm thankful, as he was not. I backed out of those plans out of fear that he wouldn't start. Galatasaray fell behind by 2 at home to Copenhagen. Christ alive, I don't know how they clawed it back, but red card for Jalert. I'm going to be terrible with pronunciation. All these names. That probably helped them. Icardi, as you know, I went with, and unfortunately, he got nothing from this game, despite me thinking that a hat-trick was on, based on the first 10-15 minutes at least, anyway. My team, United, didn't do enough against Bayern Munich. You can argue that 3 goals away, the Allianz is a pretty good result, but as someone who watched the game, I can only tell you that each goal kind of felt like a consolation. I went in expecting 4 for Bayern, and this is, I guess, the best way to lose a game under that pretense. I missed Kane and Sané really badly. People will talk about Onana, and rightly so, but I think he handled it brilliantly. I don't think anyone would have expected him to handle it in the way that he did. Serious bollocks, and I love his attitude. He's a United player through and through. I'm referring to the request at a post-match interview after a howler mistake, of course. Benfica, well, Suarez didn't start between the sticks, which was not good for me considering that I swapped out my goalkeeper from the night before. Typical. I didn't start with Antonio Silva, so maybe that's the better of the two options that I was going to make. Can't say we should expect good things from them based on this performance. So, Di Lorenzo provided the goods away to Braga, so close to a clean sheet for Napoli. Probably a man of the match bonus too, if he had gotten that clean sheet. Napoli, they really left it late here. They were not clinical enough in this game, and in the end, I'll say what my mum did, spawny bastards. I'm not too sure what that means. Might be a Yorkshire slang, so hopefully that's not far off. Arsenal, well, clean sheet and goals from Saka and Odegaard were on my mind due to the plans for Limitless, obviously, this coming game week. Can't say this has put me off, only fair now is I kind of look like I'm chasing points, but it was a very good performance, as it was yesterday in the league. Sevilla and Lens battled it out for a draw. Not much interest in this game, as were many of us with, fantasy assets. But it keeps the group alive, and PSV only a point away from the pack after losing to Arsenal. Then it's Real Sociedad and Inter to finish up match day 1. Inter with the surprising benching of DeMarco and Thuram. Well, was not expecting that. I went in with Dumfries and unfortunately fell disappointed. We need to see some more of them from game weeks 3 and 4. Watch list. Based on what we saw in this first round of fixtures, I know going into match day 2 that my sights on certain players have been somewhat influenced. Limitless once again, and also therefore my choices with 3 or 4 of my free transfers might also be influenced. But again, that's actually a bit of time away. So short term as ever in this game. I'll merge this in with the big returners of the first games, of course, but know that it's not ideal to just look at who did well last week and try to jump on them. You still want to target players with fixtures who you expect to haul, predicting rather than reacting. So, the big boys from last week, Galeno for Porto with the fat 19 points, Felix at Barcelona with the fat 16 points, Hakimi with 15 for PSG, Odegaard with 15 after a clean sheet and man of the match added to his goal returns. Then Casemiro, because of those late United goals, I must say though that last one kind of feels the most out of place. What was it, 12? Other players that I haven't noticed would be Mendes, who won Player of the Match for Real Sociedad due to his goal. Tete with a goal and an assist for Galatasaray at the late, bringing them back into the game and earning a man of the match, quite rightly so, I guess, for it. Vitinha with the 11 after a clean sheet and a man of the match for PSG, and also Simic for Salzburg after a goal and assist to get himself the man of the match. You can see the pattern here, right? The high scorers, for the most part, got an extra 3 for their reward. This is important to note because big game players and talismans, as ever, will pick up this award. Griezmann, Xavi Simons were awarded it despite having no returns in the game. This really gives you an avenue to target players that will carry the team on their back. Think big game Kevin De Bruyne, for example. This maybe has a bit of bias to higher profile players, if I'm honest. You rarely see them get awarded to a nobody. No offence. I mean, I don't pick them anyway. It's sometimes a popularity contest, isn't it? But if you follow football from a few different leagues or throughout this competition, you notice a particular player who is, bouncing domestically and almost gets that speech going into a game about how well he's doing. The ones where they talk about his stats in a lot more detail. Well, consider the likely possibility that they'll get an award again. Not saying that won't always be earned on merit, but we've all seen some of these go away that probably wasn't deserved in the past. Back we go to players that are on my eyes. Limitless on hand gives me a bit less restriction, you could say, so Big focus on Bayern Munich assets due to them playing Copenhagen, and the main three for me are hands down Kane, Sané, Davies. I don't think many will disagree with that either. I don't really need to explain why. There's probably an argument that you could go 3 in attack, but I just like the idea of having coverage. Most people will have Davies anyway, and you just got to kind of think logically sometimes. Arsenal have a very nice fixture that I think is worth taking advantage of, with Odegaard, Saka, and a defender very much on the plans. Injuries are rife at the moment in the Premier League, and Arsenal are as much a victim as anyone. Saka, Rice, Saliba did start yesterday. Martinelli, he's also under the weather. Like, if we do get something more concrete before the match day rolls around, that would be very nice, as information is everything. But Saliba would have been my first choice at the back, and Saka, obviously, in attack. It adds even more to our situation, as we can probably take a gamble on a Trossard or someone if we wanted to, but the idea of having Odegaard and Saka is pretty much guaranteed for me, so that I can get in on those penalties. For anyone that watched the game yesterday, you'll understand how difficult it is to guess who that's going to be right now. Man United also have what I call an easier fixture. They're still injury-plagued themselves and they're not playing very well. I don't think I consider Rashford as a priority in the forward spots. Such as Kane, Haaland and Mbappe. But said I wouldn't mention them. You get my point. You're on Limitless. You're not looking at 7 million Højlund, but Bruno Fernandes and probably Onana, though, are looking like my cup of tea in here. I can have a second keeper from the Wednesday night game, which is also quite pricey. A good example of that would be Oblak at Atletico Madrid, who host Feyenoord. That triple up of Griezmann, Oblak and Molina probably is quite tasty. Double defence. Benfica were poor, of course, last week, and without Antonio Silva, maybe a spice of a selection from Inter. A side I can only assume will be better this time around, such as assets such as Martinez should appeal. Dumfries, of course, should be on here because of his potential. Monster in fantasy, and you never want to miss his hauls. DeMarco too. The subbing of both these players this season is, recently, probably means that some will shy away from them, especially DeMarco, since he missed match day 1. And though he isn't as costly, maybe Summer in goal is definitely, he is always on my mind. Then, of course, I can't not mention a big fullback like Cancelo. Assisting match day 1, he was a monster last season, whilst he wasn't, Pep Guardiola's arch nemesis. And anyone with fantasy knowledge knows why. Could do a lot worse than have him in your squad. And when budget isn't an issue, why stress? Gundogan is somewhat in that category as well. And since Real Madrid's playing Napoli away, it could be a miss for Bellingham instead. It's not safe by any means, but we do have ground to make up for. I've also considered Stegen at the back as well, of course. Double up on Barcelona. Just as much as we can double up on Atletico if you wanted to. So yeah, I'm sure from these players we can meet the necessary 15 for this upcoming match day. Let's, though, have a look at some players that I'd be considering for match day 3, because it's not just Limitless for some people, it will be a wild card too. So having a little revisit to Napoli, who, because they play Real Madrid, are not going to be in any consideration for myself, but in match day 3, Osimhen could very much make his way in if something were to happen to Kane, for example. If you're targeting, 3 and 4, then Napoli play Union Berlin, and he's somebody that I wouldn't brush to the side in your thinking. I already have Di Lorenzo, like I say, but if you're on a wild card, you've got to think a bit further ahead, haven't you? Really? And that attacking potential can always happen for you in bigger games. I have already talked about Inter fairly well, and most people are aware of assets. But just to reiterate, Thuram at 6.5 for 2 games against Salzburg. That should absolutely be a piece of candy due to his price. Real Madrid will face Braga in their reverse fixtures for 3 and 4, and obviously everyone at Bellingham, but had people considered the likes of Rodrigo, and most importantly, those on a wild card should remember that Vinny Jr. will probably be back from injury by the time those games come around. On a wild card, Kepa is affordable, and I also like Alaba just because of his versatility. Vasquez got the start in match day 1, so at 4.5. That would be great on a wild card for value reasons, but Garcia also looked good too. If Vasquez starts again, then that would be more comforting. He did start against Atletico in the league, so maybe he is the big game player. On a wild card, obviously budget is more of a restraint. Eyes will be on Alvarez with the 7 million price tag after match day 1, so rightly so. Højlund can be on people's minds too. At Man United, having the room for Bruno might be too much for many, and I have considered moving on Icardi to either Kane or Højlund. If I do take Højlund, it means I can probably upgrade somebody in midfield to Sané and still be pretty comfortable and flexible. At Leipzig, many of us would have started with Olmo had he been fit, so when he's back in match day 3, I hope wildcarders should absolutely take advantage of that 7 million cost as they face Red Star twice. Don't forget how good Rom and Henriks were as well at 4.5 million. You could easily double up on that. I started with Rodri at Man City, so therefore I have to brag, but with budget always being on my mind for the group stage, 6.5 million for someone, like I say, has man of the match appeal, is a real team carrier, and has popped up with a few goals and assists so far, has to be advised. And finally, since Galeno gave an eye-watering return against Shakhtar, he will probably be a free transfer in for round 3 as they play Antwerp. And I know there's a chance of clean sheets here too, so Pepe and Mario at 4.5, I think they are. They, of course, do appeal to me as well. Let's get my team out of the way then. From the bench, we have Blatvic with 2 points, Akanji with his 1 as he didn't start and just made an appearance, Xavi Simons with 4. Yep, I've swapped him out in the belief that other assets would do better. He ended up getting booked, of course, for his, complaining, but rightly so, because it was a penalty, so you could probably make that 4 points, should have been a 5, should have been a 7, because he should have won the penalty, and therefore, if he'd taken it, God knows where we'd be. Also in this category is Haaland, on 5. Obviously, him being on my bench, kind of means that I moved the captaincy, and there were 2 choices for Wednesday night's games, Icardi and Bellingham. It's just 50-50, guess which one I went for. Captaincy blank really does hurt more than I can explain. It's hard to make up that ground. So 4 points from the captain and 11 from Bellingham make it 15 altogether. It could have been 24 if the coin toss had just gone the other way. Icardi was a 1-week punt, like I said in episode 1, and as I say, the first 10 minutes really gave me confidence of it being the right decision. Sadly, it was not, and I got to watch everyone with Kane and Bellingham captaincy soak up the fun. Joining Icardi up front was Lewandowski, who managed a goal and provided 6 points. His teammate Koundé gave a good 8 after 6 ball recoveries, added to that clean sheet. Rom grabbed me an assist and a ball recovery bonus to contribute 6 points. I really like watching Rom in this game. Set pieces, there must have been like 3 or 4 opportunities where he deserved an assist. Rodri with a good 10-pointer, as I mentioned, because of his goal and man of the match. Stong's the absolute hero with 12, and the other returner being Di Lorenzo with the 9, meaning that the other 3 blankers with Icardi kind of scares me that I only got 4. Thuram, who didn't start, giving me 1, and Dumfries, who just gave the regular 2. Incredible, really. The only 4 players that blanked in this position. All because of the captaincy. We finished on 69 points. Way, about 330k overall. Silver linings are that we look good for the next 3 weeks and have a wild card in our back pocket, which I do think is going to be wasted by many. Time will tell. So, going into the next match day, quickly summing up those tables so far. Group A is topped by Bayern, B is by Arsenal, C is joint between Napoli and Real. Group D is surprisingly led by Salzburg, who I think I called to finish last. Could well be that this group goes further into the group stage, like we have said and we have some wildcard picks to go with. E is currently with Fenroyd at the top due to that late Lazio goal to draw with Atletico. PSG top group of DF. No, I'm trying. This is the one that can change every game, I think. Group G is tied between Leipzig and City, so eyes on their meeting next week. And finally, Group H, as expected, sits with Barcelona on top due to goal difference on Porto. They also meet next week. From Tuesday night's games, I predict a draw between Berlin and Braga, as I do Sociedad and Salzburg. Both in the early kickoffs. Inter, I predict to kick back against Benfica, and PSV to be triumphant over Sevilla. I feel very confident in Bayern beating Copenhagen, and I hope I'm not too confident in saying United beat Galatasaray. It is at home, thankfully, not that mattered against Palace. Napoli and Madrid will likely be a draw in Italy, and Arsenal might struggle on the road to Lens, but I think they'll get the job done. On Wednesday, Atletico. I've kind of put my nose in it to say that they need to win, obviously with a triple up. But games like Antwerp versus Shakhtar, Red Star against Young Boys, Dortmund and Milan, and Newcastle PSG, I think they are all fair game. Anything can happen. It would be probably too boring to say they're all draws, so I'm going to stick my neck out and say Newcastle win and Antwerp get battered as wild punts. Of course, Porto hosts Barcelona. I expect them to lose, as Leipzig will against Man City. Celtic and Lazio must be Lazio, I think, purely based on vibes from match day one. I think captaincy for next match day will be best suited to Kane or Sané on the Tuesday. Saka or Odegaard is an option for some, but why? And failure, that they get anything leaves Wednesday. Options such as Lewandowski, Haaland, and maybe Griezmann if you fancy repeating my Icardi gamble. As always, hit me up on Twitter if you've got any questions. I'll answer you directly and cover anything in the next pod that is relevant. FPL_Wingman, you know the drill. I will probably struggle to get out the FPL and Sky episodes in a timely manner next week due to me going away on Monday. It genuinely might be that I plan for them on my train there and back. I'm going down to Brighton, and then I'll hopefully be able to smash them both out on Friday night before. I'm going to do my best, I swear. Thanks for joining me for another episode of UCL Fantasy, though. Episode 2 leaves plenty to be hopeful for, so we're not dwelling on the past. Ahead we go, limitless potential. All for now, over and out.
Balotelli, Aguero!